I love Daniel Craig's final James Bond movie, No Time to Die, but the entire plot is built on an implausible contrivance, and it really stuck out to me on a rewatch. For the most part, I think No Time to Die was a really strong final chapter for Craig's 007. It has some gorgeously shot, creatively staged action sequences. It was a welcome return to the Bond movie formula of 007 tracking down a megalomaniacal villain to a secret island lair and putting an end to their plans for world domination. I think Craig gives an Oscar-caliber performance in his final outing as Bond. Lashana Lynch is a great deadpan foil for him as Nomi, Ana de Armas steals the show with a relatively small role as Paloma, and Rami Malek Safin is a suitably sinister baddie. Bond's death at the end of No Time to Die gave Craig's tenure as 007 a bittersweet sense of finality that none of his predecessors got. The movie is well-paced, too, so it mostly holds up on a rewatch. But there's one thing from the opening act that still bugs me. Daniel Craig's James Bond is way too quick to believe Madeleine betrayed him. All it takes is one little nudge from an unreliable source. James Bond in his Aston Martin in No Time to Die. No Time to Die picks up shortly after the events of Spectre. After arresting Blofeld, Bond takes a much-needed vacation to Matera with returning love interest Dr. Madeleine Swan. When the movie catches up with them, Bond and Madeleine are madly in love, enjoying each other's company without a care in the world. While they're there, Madeleine encourages Bond to visit his ex-girlfriend Vesper Lynd's grave to help him move on from her passing. So, he reluctantly goes to Vesper's grave to pay his respects, and there, he's ambushed by a merry band of Spectre assassins. Bond races back to the hotel and flees the scene with Madeleine. On their way out of town, 007 uses every gadget loaded up in his Aston Martin to fend off Primo and his goons. But as they make their escape, Madeleine's phone receives a celebratory call from Blofeld. Bond puts two and two together and assumes that Madeleine is in cahoots with Blofeld. He thinks she encouraged him to go to Vesper's grave so he'd walk right into Spectre's ambush. But he doesn't, even for a second, entertain the idea that his arch-nemesis might be deceiving him. Despite Madeleine's protests, Bond takes her to a train station, puts her on a train, and tells her she will never see him again. 5 long years pass before Bond and Madeleine are brought back together by a case, and Madeleine is naturally reluctant to embrace the guy who abandoned her based on flimsy evidence. 007 had a lot of time to reflect over the course of his retirement, and it never occurred to him that he may have been too hasty in blaming Madeleine for the attack and cutting her out of his life completely. A spy of Bond's caliber should have considered the possibility of a Spectre trick. 007 usually thinks of everything. Christoph Waltz as Blofeld in prison in No Time to Die. Bond earned 00 status by becoming one of MI6's greatest spies. He's the elite of the elite, the smartest and most capable agent on Her Majesty's Secret Service, now His Majesty's Secret Service. He became so capable by maintaining a healthy skepticism. Bond doesn't trust anyone, he second-guesses everything, and he can see trickery coming from a mile away. He can handle any danger that comes his way. Every time an assassin tries to sneak up on Bond, he's one step ahead of them. So, why was he so quick to believe Blofeld and abandon Madeleine? Craig's 007 doesn't have the perfect batting average of his predecessors. This Bond isn't infallible, like Sean Connery or Roger Moore, he makes mistakes. The reason Vesper died is that Bond failed to save her from a sinking building in the finale of Casino Royale. Craig is responsible for Bond's first on-screen failure, since he failed to stop Raoul Silva's plot in Skyfall. But even taking his fallibility into account, it seems like a massive oversight for Bond to trust Blofeld over Madeleine and send her away based on one little nudge. One conversation could have easily resolved Bond and Swan's breakup. All he had to do was ask. If Bond had just talked to Madeleine instead of giving her the silent treatment and ditching her at a train station, the whole thing could have been cleared up. If they'd just talked about it, Bond would have realized that it sounds more plausible that Blofeld was deceiving him than the woman who loves him. Madeleine tries to explain that she didn't betray Bond and that Blofeld is tricking him, but he won't hear it. He just shuts her out until it's time to abandon her on a train and leave that chapter of his life behind. It's similar to the comic misunderstandings that form the basis of episodes of sitcoms like Modern Family and Everybody Loves Raymond. After something is misheard or misinterpreted, the characters could just ask each other about it and clear up the problem in 2 minutes rather than dragging it out for 21 minutes of hijinks. It feels out of character for Bond to trust Blofeld and ignore Madeleine's pleas for reason. It seems more like something the screenwriters needed to happen than something the character would actually do. The flimsy nature of Bond and Swan's breakup hurts Daniel Craig's final chapter. The whole movie is built on this contrivance. Daniel Craig as James Bond in No Time to Die. On the whole, I think No Time to Die is a great movie, and a fitting swansong for Craig's Bond. But I don't think it's a Bond movie masterpiece on par with Casino Royale and On Her Majesty's Secret Service, because it's far from a perfect movie. This contrived opening act is one of the film's biggest flaws. A plot contrivance is one thing, almost every big action blockbuster has them, because they go through rewrites during shooting, but this one is particularly egregious, because the entire movie is built on it.